Good evening, good morning. Welcome to week 5 for PSSL 6240 here at George Washington University. I'm going with this Microsoft Word format for this week because my webcam something's wrong with it. So please let me know if you prefer this version, the Microsoft Word / PowerPoint, or you want me to show my not so pretty face and we can have that face-to-face discussion. So I just wanted to give that option and see what's the most likable. So week 5, just announcements. Adobe Connect session this Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our week 5 group will be presenting that week. Hopefully we'll give you some ideas for the paper. Brief will be about 20-25 minutes or so. And what I want to also add to that is an optional jobs talk. Careers, jobs, working in the federal government, working in the intelligence community, working in the Department of Defense. I have plenty of experience hiring people. I have plenty of experience trying to get hired, and I think some of my insights might be helpful to you guys if you want to pursue, again, a position in the federal government or something that's applicable in this field. So we'll make that part optional. I'll put it at the end. So 20 minutes, the presentation will go, and then we'll have another 20-25 minutes to talk, to have a job talk. Second point, paper number 1, I'm 2/3 complete with marking it. We'll have the rest done early in the week. Just some comments from the paper. One, every one of you had too much background, way too much background. Do not give me that level of background in your paper. If you're going to do something like the Fort Hood shooting, get to the point. Do not give me a history of what happened or anything like that. Just again, if you're doing a Fort Hood shooting, you say Fort Hood should be an act of terrorism. Get right to your reasoning why it should be an act of terrorism. 1, 2, 3, bam, bam, bam. So again, even if you have a paragraph or 2 paragraphs of history, that's too much, and that's going to be really relevant in this paper, which I really want it to be short and concise and with as little fluff as possible. So too much background. Some of you, advocacy versus analysis, particularly for those who did Fort Hood, but there are others too. If you're going to have a statement like, we need to put Hassan or classify Fort Hood as a terrorist, we need to do that, or we need to put the PKK as a terrorist on the terrorist state-sponsored group. You've already undermined your analysis. If you put something like we need or it has to be this way, and you're going to kind of take that away from your thought. You're putting too much bias in there. So advocacy versus analysis. Make sure your language and how you come across is more analysis as opposed to advocacy. And then finally, passive voice. And here is kind of the sentences. If you haven't worked with passive voice is really simple. This first sentence is passive voice. The ball was bounced by the boy. You know it's passive because the subject of the subject of the sentence is boy, and the verb is bounced. So if the direct object, which is ball, if the direct object comes before the subject and the verb, that's a passive sentence. The way you change it is like this. The boy bounced the ball. So, subject, verb, direct object. I hate to sound like an English teacher, but that's how your writing should be. It should be in the active voice. That will make it much more clear, much more cogent to a widespread audience. So again, when you're looking through proofing your papers, look for passive voice and ask yourself, is this sentence passive? And try and just change it real quick to this. So I'll stand by on Thursday if there's any comments on the paper as well, if you want to talk to me one-on-one after the Adobe Connect session. So, and I'll have all those papers marked before Thursday. So review of last week, this is terrorist adaptation. The one thing I'm going to review, and everyone did a pretty good job on their discussion points, going through down with one of the groups and analyzing it in depth. The one thing I'm going to say is when you're going through this group and you're looking for those patterns of adaptation, whether it's successful or not, look at the current headlines. ISIS, or ISIL, or ICE, or IS, whatever we're calling it today, but that terrorist group that's occupying Syria and Iran, it is going through an adaptation cycle right now. And you could see it in the reporting that you see in the news and on in the media. They're going through that similar cycle that I talked about in the lecture. There might have been some legitimate Sunni grievances that the Sunni community had in both Iraq and Syria. They're being persecuted by the government of Iraq. They're being persecuted by the government of Syria. So there might have been some legitimacies there. But you can almost see that the hardcore Islamists, the more radical factions, have taken over the movement. And you could probably see, and we haven't seen any reporting of it, but one thing to look out for is those conflicts between people who see themselves as legitimate representatives of Sunni grievances, and then those who want this international caliphate or are beheading people and who might be involved in terrorism against Westerners. So look out for that in the next couple of weeks as you're reading the newspaper. And then the second point, WMD terrorism. Again, this is what your paper topic is going to be. Hopefully you have a more better understanding of these challenges that anybody who wants to conduct a WMD attack has. Acquisition, transportation, dissemination. Those are kind of issues that they have to overcome, every one of them, in order to be successful. You saw the case study, versus Al-Qaeda, and I think that kind of illustrated the difficulties in conducting WMD attacks and the hurdles that was able to overcome, and the advantages has that Al-Qaeda might not have. Why was Shinrikyo able to employ WMD while Al-Qaeda has not? And we went deep into that question, and I hope that makes your paper a little bit more give some insights into your paper. And then finally, we had the two case studies, Shinrikyo and Rajneeshis. You saw the videos, you saw the write-ups in there. Again, used chemical weapons on a scale because, again, they had the freedom of movement. They had massive financial resources. Rajneeshis used a biological attack. And, again, the key is the Rajneeshis weren't – they were kind of crazy, but they weren't certainly like Al-Qaeda level violence, but they were still employed in WMD attack, even at a low level. So that covered kind of the WMD terrorism issue. I look forward to your papers. And just previewing next week, just kind of three things. We're going to look at U.S. counterterrorism strategy, 2001 to current. And you'll, when you're doing the readings, read. Have those questions in mind. Are we being successful? Is our success, or are we successful? Or are we not successful? Are we successful in certain areas? Or are we not successful in other areas? So please, keep that in mind as you're doing the readings. Second, the Zakaria article, which is not in your course pack, and I'll send it in the email when I do the announcements. Please read that article and then ask, are we winning the global war on terror? Keep in mind that article was written in 2010, prior to the Arab Spring, prior to the Bin Laden capture, and prior to this ISIS coming back up. So, are we winning the global war on terror? And then finally, comparative counterterrorism strategy. What lessons can we learn from Israel, from England, from the EU that can be successful in the United States? So that's just kind of preview and review for last week. And let me know if there's any questions. And I look forward to seeing you on Thursday at the Adobe Connect session.